Hey, U-Haul. Yeah, we're in PA. We're in Clark Summit. Tonight is the UnitePA event. Hi guys, good evening. We're getting ready to start soon. Just figured I'd give you a chance to get in and start the stream so we don't miss anything. I actually haven't checked the news to see what's going on I know that the last election hearing that I was at to delay the certification of these elections, that didn't go so well. But I know the Supreme Court's taking on the case right now. I spent a lot of time on the road, so today. Actually, the last couple of days I spent a lot of time on the road, so a lot of catching up to do. Oh, I know. Trust me. That's exactly how I feel. I just figured I'd turn my camera around for a minute and say hi to everybody.
Hi.
So I'm here with Gwen and her dad, and of course this is UnitePA's event tonight. So we're just kind of waiting for everything to start. But I just wanted to say hi and flip the camera around for a second. There's a... I actually just got gas in the sheets when I got here. So I'm good. I'm all fueled up and ready to go. Long Island tomorrow. So I'm going to be headed out that way tonight already. So I'm going to go do that in the morning because that's a convoy tomorrow morning. So, and I'll repost that flyer tonight. Oh man, my necklaces are totally tangled again. Let me flip this around. I'm going to mess with my necklaces.
up in Pennsylvania.
Are we good with the gals on the left there? The hat?
Yeah,
Okay, I have to take my own.
it's a little.
Yeah, okay.
It's
Okay, whatever you need.
Yeah, we should be good.
Okay, we're going to get started, I think.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much for everything.
Hey, I'm in it with you.
I need a team to make the dream work.
That's right.
So,
Got your attention. All I got to do is point it at the speaker and I've got you. Okay, we're going to get started. On behalf of UnitePA and the Pennsylvania Patriotic Coalition, we want to welcome you for coming. We thank you for your concern, for your motivation, for taking the time to come. We really hope that tonight we'll hear some things that will challenge us and encourage us, okay? I guess I should say my name is Louise Cater, and I'm welcoming you because Sam Pattis has a little frog there, and he's saving his voice for when you really want to hear what he has to say. So, since we are Americans, would you stand with me? We're going to pray. And then we're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance. All right? Father God, we come to you as your children. We thank you, Lord, for this country and for the foundation that it is built upon. We thank you, Lord, that you have inspired all those who have written our Constitution. You have empowered and encouraged those who fought for this country. And Lord, that we today need to have that same spirit within us of who we are, who you are, and what this nation is all about. And so, Lord God, we ask tonight that you would bless each one for taking the time to come here together. That secondly, you would give the words to speak to each one who is going to come before us. And Lord, that as we leave, we would be encouraged and challenged and motivated to be people who stand for what we know is true and right. And so, God, we thank you. In the name of my Savior, Jesus. Amen. Amen. Let's say the Pledge to Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
Hey folks, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
I will apologize in advance for the fact that I will sound like a large straw all night long. I spent 3 hours on my feet talking in Stroudsburg last night and got home to discover that I could no longer talk. My wife is still jumping around with excitement and in fact, hoping that I don't recover from the condition. I'm Sam Faddis. I'm the head of UnitePA, which is the local Susquehanna group, and I am also now the president of the Pennsylvania Patriot Coalition. Without getting lost in a lot of organizational theory, just real quick, what we've done with the Pennsylvania Patriot Coalition is we have brought together patriot groups from all over the state, not to take away their individual identity, not to make them have to take orders from some higher authority. That wouldn't work real well with a patriot coalition anyway. But to get them all communicating and coordinating and cooperating and pulling in the same direction. So we have taken some time since the inception of this in April to really spend the time adopting bylaws, getting employer ID numbers, opening bank accounts, a lot of stuff that's not particularly fun, but is necessary if you intend to pick a fight in the political arena in the current climate. The short version is we're building this to last. So it's not just about having a few meetings. We are building a structure so that we can continue to move ahead and grow. I will talk at the end of this from a coalition standpoint about the sort of strategic direction and where we are. But up front, just a few folks I want to recognize. First of all, there are a number of members of UnitePA here in the House who have been the folks who did all the legwork to actually make this event happen. That wasn't me. Can you guys all raise your hands, please? Look around. Raising a chair doesn't count. Yeah. All right. Also, there are a number of leaders of patriot groups that are constituent members of the broader coalition who have made the drive, some of them considerable drives, to be present. Can you guys all raise your hands, please? And Pam, who's over here raising her hand, is also our secretary for the whole statewide organization, which means at the end of every one of our officers' meetings, she has to try to take what we just said and render it into intelligible English and make it sound like we had some clue what we were talking about. With me, that's a particular challenge. But we had Stacy Klein up here as an example, came up from Bloomsburg, and you guys are the ones who were really the spark plugs and the hosts of that huge rally we had at the end of August down in Bloomsburg. My point in pointing these folks out is not just that they deserve the recognition, but for you to understand that there are a lot of people involved in this and a lot of people devoting immense amounts of time to this. This really is a statewide organization, and it is ongoing on every day. And as I will talk about at the end, the whole objective here is to make it bigger, more powerful, and more impactful. So we're going to start sliding speakers. The first speaker, I got to get your group name right. Every group in the state of Pennsylvania, the Patriot Coalition, virtually has a name which is some variation of Patriot. So therefore, to be clear, Deborah Jordan, Council of American Patriots from Luzerne County, who is going to come speak to you guys about the Democratic voting machine, what's happening in Luzerne. When I call it, there we go.
with Council American Patriots of Luzerne County. I have to tell you, we started off by calling ourselves the angry grannies of Luzerne County, but when young people and men started joining our group, we decided we had to change the name. So let's get down to some things that we realized after we got done renaming ourselves that we have to take a serious look at. So here are some of the things that we are up against. Number one, we're up against progressive Democrats who think the world is their playground. And they live up to that fact by being the playground bully. They cajole and demand that we play the game by their rules or we don't play at all. Also, we're up against our own party, the people who make up the Republican establishment. And I must say that these people are far worse than the Democrats. Why do I say this? Because even though the left is pushing a socialist agenda, at least they do not claim to be on our side while actually working against us. We're up against a biased media filled with thought control and propaganda. Gone are the days of the professional journalist, enter the character actor. Forget trying to find just the facts and deciding for yourself what you want to believe. Your decisions have already been made, no thinking required. We are up against the government being the biggest employer in the country. Now, not that there's anything wrong with working for the government, but the enormity of this is no accident. This is purposefully done and it stagnates private business and it purposefully ensures democratic votes. We are up against our government acting as a welfare state. It's hard to compete with the government that is supplying and subsidizing food, health care, cell phones, and internet, all at the expense of self-sufficiency and at the expense of self-respect. This is no accident. We are up against the government who is using our energy sources against us. Our state and our country can be self-sufficient. We can be nationally secure, but again, we are not. And this is on purpose, because this is the way of a global socialist system. So, we scratch our heads. We say, how did we get here? We have multitudes of people. We have the best of the best. Lawyers, political scientists, highly educated thinkers trying to figure this out. But we still can't come up with a viable solution. Why? Because we're up against a formidable foe. And they have had a huge start. They've been out of the gate before we even heard the whistle blow. Whose fault is this? Very simple question with a very simple answer. It's our fault. We were too trusting of our elected Republican legislators to do what we voted them in for. We were too independent to ask for help and to unite. We were too gullible to think that people in power could lie to our faces while claiming they were working in the best interest for democracy. So, how do we fix this? We individually and collectively be the change. We don't back down. We don't settle. We don't worry who might not like us for having our convictions. This is a war that we can win by no more blindly trusting, no more working independently. We unite. No more being gullible. We question, we fact check, we call people out on their lies. All right, let's narrow things down just a bit. I'd like to hit upon some politics at my local level and share just a few things that I witnessed in my own county of Luzerne in the past few months. So I'll start with my local county GOP. The process we have in our county for placing a candidate's name on a ballot for a primary election starts with the local precinct committee's vote. After the majority vote is tabulated, it's delivered to our county level GOP. This is exactly what we did back in April for a special election for state rep. After being assured face-to-face by our executive county GOP that our vote would hold and our choice would be on the ballot, the county GOP completely disregarded our vote and proceeded to place a well-connected former Democrat on the ballot. The only thing it boils down to is lies and corruption by our own party. So we'll move on to Luzerne County management. Our county manager, who was only on the job since June, recently just resigned from his position. He took with him a bountiful severance package. And he departs without being held accountable for, at the prospect of possibly raising our taxes, placing politically tied people into highly inflated salary positions. Also, he is leaving without being held answerable for overseeing the botched election on November 8th. So, speaking of elections, the November 8th election in Luzerne County. Let's start with the board and the election bureau. These positions are filled with progressives, save one true patriot that I can vouch for. So this board, our election board and our election bureau, they basically do whatever they want. They tweak the rules just enough to push their leftist policies through. So it's bad enough we use Dominion machines. We use Runbeck sorters. The election officials completely failed to run a legitimate election on November 8th. And I know you must have heard about the infamous ballot paper shortage. Well, that wasn't the only thing that went wrong that day. I worked the polls from before 7 until the extended period at 10 p.m. We had run out of provisional ballots. We had people run out of emergency ballots. Judges of elections were instructed by the Election Bureau to not accept mail-in ballots that people wanted to surrender. So they're supposed to surrender them, write across it, and give them a provisional. They were instructed not to. They were told, we're sorry, you did it wrong. You could take your ballot and drive to Penn Place, which is a receptacle. They had a ballot drop box, which was totally incorrect information. So I witnessed at least 2 people being turned away in this fashion. So in addition to those things, other circumstances that came up that day was when we were instructed to stay open between 8 and 10, our polling place was told one set of procedures, and friends that we had working at other ones were told completely different ones. There was no uniformity. Phone calls to the Election Bureau when we were in a panic running out of paper, unanswered. Sometimes we'd get a phone call, sometimes we'd get a voicemail, to leave a voicemail, to leave a message. Also, prior to election day, no proper training. I watched a video the day before just to get me through to know how to run the polling place that I was working at. We had people that just first day they were on the job as judge of election had no idea what to do, and they said, don't worry about it, just wing it. So in addition to that, we also had temporary workers who had to count the mail-ins, being instructed improperly how to watch and look for signature verifications and the proper date. So they made it halfway through their date before somebody asked, oh, what do I do with this one that doesn't have the proper date? So around 11 a.m. they were instructed properly. So we did bring this to the attention of the board. We've tried everything, petitions, affidavits, injunctions. So far they certified the election because this is how corrupt it is and how far deep we are in. So I do want to pause though. I really feel like I do have to add a disclaimer. I have to say that there are good people in these establishments, on the board specifically, on the election board. They are desperately trying to do what's right, but they are outnumbered and they are up against insurmountable challenges. So that's one of the problems we face, which brings me to some of my other topics that I'll get into is we have to change that. We have to take back over these boards and these bureaus. So I also asked myself, in my own county, how did these things happen right under my nose? And again, the answer is simple. The fox was in charge of the hen house. We, the constituents of Luzerne County, did not pay attention. We did not get involved at the level we should have. Yes, there were a few people who were consistent, they were vigilant, they did their due diligence, they attended meetings, they kept up with things, but there were too few of them. Their voices were soon drowned out by a much louder voice of an orchestra of corruption. That's all it comes down to. So how do we combat this? Well, by standing up by pushing back and fighting back against the status quo. Now, as all of you in this room already know, this is hard work. It takes sacrifice. It takes a bite out of your time, out of your money, out of the activities you enjoy. But the satisfaction at the end of the day will be well worth it. Also, I stand here with people of like mind, and I know there's some beneficial traits that we all have in common. I'd like to say that number one, all of us in this room, and others like us, we face the reality of what's going on. We also have foresight. We just don't see what's an inch in front of our nose. We have the foresight to see what our country will become if we don't take action. And we also, everyone in this room has the ability to be the change. We have the ability to affect some sort of change. And I'll just give a quote by John Adams here. The revolution was effected before the war commenced. It was in the heart and the minds of the people. That was the real revolution. So let's talk about how we can do this. The traditional way of voting for someone on the ballot will not work unless we fix the system. How do we fix the system? We put parameters in place. We do this by placing candidates on the ballots who will be brave enough to enact policies to include term limits, constraining government bureaucracy, and reducing the welfare state. That's going to take guts. This also includes loosening regulations for startups and small businesses. If we have healthy economies at the local level, we can basically tell the government to go take a hike when they try to blackmail us into putting policies in place that we don't feel comfortable with. Our efforts must include actively searching for good candidates. And if they are elected into office, we must keep them accountable. If we are steadfast in this endeavor, we can get good patriots on the ballot. But even true patriots can be corrupted by the system. They must have the guts to effectively put controls on themselves. They must be willing to pass legislation to limit government's overreach. So when we do start vetting candidates, we have to actively be involved. We have to vet them, we have to question them. If they get in, we have to show up at their offices. We can't just let it slide. We can't just have the state of affairs as it was. So this is an enormous problem. How do we start to tackle it? We chip away at it little by little, step by step. We start at the local level. We live it in our daily lives. We drive steadfast with a clear head and not with emotion. We defeat it and we defend it at the local level. And we succeed from the bottom up and we stop top-down bureaucracy. Now I'd like to just tell you guys about a bottom-up tactic that we're employing in Luzerne County. This is a no drop box election integrity campaign. So this entails a resolution for election reform that we, our Council of American Patriots group, we are proposing this to each and every municipality in Luzerne. There are 77 municipalities. What we do is we travel to each municipality, we present the resolution for adoption by the administrative body of that municipality. Now this resolution is based on the voting procedures prior to Act 77 and prior to Wolf's mandate of the drop boxes. So if this resolution is adopted, it gives the local community an opportunity to be a counter voice to the progressive policies put in place by our election board. This countywide campaign, it has gained momentum. We have had success. There have been a few progressive areas that would not go for it, but I can say it is making a difference, and we are establishing a lot of patriot contacts along the way. So if anybody would like a little more information on that, I can talk with you afterwards. I have documents that we can, specifically put to your county and the municipalities within. So that is one thing that I feel it has really opened the eyes of local municipalities. They're so thankful that they have at least a voice in this whole process. So to move on, to also be the change, We have to take steps individually, which means, as I said earlier, we have to run for office. We have to do things like write letters to the editor, attend community events, and interact with our neighbors. We have got to attend council and supervisory meetings. But the most important thing you can do is to do everything and anything that you can get involved with in the election process in your county. Work the polls, observe ballots being tabulated, volunteer to observe the counting of mail-ins, anything with elections. That's where the magic happens for the Democrats. If that's all you can do one day a year is to be a poll worker, poll watcher, by all means, please do that. Besides these obvious steps, there are other ways to win the war that we're in. And that is by putting your money where your mouth is. And that means getting rid of your Amazon account and stop dealing with woke companies. In other words, don't financially support the enemy. When you cancel your Amazon account, make sure you tell them why. Tell them we remember when they cut off their internet servers and denied conservative apps a way to host their services. Tell woke companies that we don't believe in the racism that they support by basing their hiring policies on the color of a person's skin or their sexual orientation. And the next time you have to cancel a service or return a product or downgrade a subscription, tell them the reason is because of the effect the Biden administration's policies are having on our economy. Another important step is to buy local as much as possible. Go to a neighborhood pharmacy. Purchase eggs and meat from a farmer if possible. Forget Lowe's and Home Depot, find a local Agway type store. Really put your money where your mouth is. These actions will help the local economy. And this in turn will help them become independent from the need for government subsidies. One other thing that I find that needs to be remedied is the way that Republicans are characterized within the public realm. You can't go anywhere without really being looked down upon anymore for being a Republican. People that are for the country, for babies in the womb. Why are we being looked down upon? And the way to do this, we need to change this. At every opportunity, we have to correct this misguided character that's been placed upon the Republican Party. We must change the false branding that has been given to us as being only for the rich, being homophobic, being against the rights of people for all walks of life. We need to let others know we are not what they profess us to be. We have to get this out there. We have to let them know that, yes, we want policies in place for the poor, but with controls to prevent fiscal abuse. We want adults to be able to do what they want in the privacy of their own homes, but without it being shoved in our faces and the faces of our children. We want rights and liberties for people of all walks of life, but not more for others because of the labeling of intersectionality. We must profess this every chance we get. Now, to do this, we have to get out of our comfort zone. As Tocqueville said, people cannot be free unless they are willing to sacrifice. Unless individual citizens are regularly involved in the action of governing themselves, self-government will pass from the scene. Everything we do is a brick in the foundation of change. If sending off a letter to your local newspaper or talking to the clerk in the grocery store is something you can accomplish on a daily basis, then you are a cornerstone in the building of this coalition. I'll leave you with a quote by Edmund Burke. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing, as both the doers and the non-doers will be recorded in the pages of history. So I stand with you, strong, undeterred, to confront these challenges we're facing in the beautiful country of the United States of America. God bless and thank you.
So I made a point when we started talking here, of pointing out folks that are in the room as a way of drawing people's attention to the fact that there's a lot of people involved in this fight, and there's a lot of people contributing an enormous amount. As we were forming up this Pennsylvania Patriot Coalition, going through one of God knows how many leadership meetings, trying to get across to the coalition as a whole the concept that ultimately this is about power politics and making people do what we want. That I wish we lived in a world of unicorns and rainbows where they would all do what we ask them to do. But that ain't the way it works. As I'm trying to convince multiple people in the room, this is the lady who talks over everybody and says 2 words: relentless pressure. Brings everybody to one fine point. Stop with the mamby-pamby. Make them do what you want. I'll come back to that more when I'm talking. Next up, Jamie Walsh, Citizens Advisory PA, and I think Jamie's gonna talk generally about where we are with a particular focus on the schools, right?
Yes, sir.
Please come on up, Anna.
Thank you, Sam, for having me here tonight. Thank you, church, for Servant Church, for providing this beautiful venue that we're in here. And thanks for the turnout. My name is Jamie Walsh, and I'm from Lake Lehman School District down in Luzerne County. Everybody knows us because we have the cool black turf field. We were on ESPN for that, the first ones in the country. Yeah, us taxpayers paid for that. Yeah. Well, we made ESPN, but it hit our pockets. Actually, the kids. I'm the president of the Lake Lehman Junior Knights, which is kids from 5 to 12 years old, cheerleading and football. And I've been the president there for 8 years, and the kids absolutely love playing on that black turf. So I think it was a good investment. I was kind of a tongue-in-cheek joke, but the reason I'm here tonight is specifically to talk to you about school boards. And what's going on in our schools right now is really going to shock you. I will probably see some jaws on the floor when I'm done speaking here. But first, I'd like to ask, how many of you pay taxes at Abington Heights School District? Can you raise your hands? 1, 2, raise them high, please. Keep them up. And keep them up if you've been to an Abington Heights School Board meeting in the last 3 to 6 months. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. 5. I saw another hand. 5. So our group, Citizens Advisory, how we started, I'm going to come back to that Abington Heights thing here in a minute, but our group, Citizens Advisory of Pennsylvania, started with a group of parents that were really disgusted over the masking of our children in schools, social distancing, contact tracing, sending the kids home. My son was contact traced 3 times before Christmas and missed 21 days of school. And that's when I lost my mind. It wasn't really because I was worried about his education, but he was home with me all the time, So honestly, he's a great kid. That was a joke. But he missed 21 days of school prior to Christmas, and my first school board meeting, shame on me, once again, going back to what Deb said, if you're not paying attention, don't steal your wallet when you're sleeping. So I wasn't really paying attention. Of course, everybody was disgusted with the masking and the contact tracing. The first time I ever attended a school board meeting, other than seeing a coach that I knew getting elected or getting voted on or something like that, was in September of 2021. And I sent in a notice. This is where it all started with me. I sent a notice to the school and explained my concerns. And at that point in time, they were all on Zoom. So when I sent my message in, I outlined everything that I was feeling as a parent. I will tell you, my wife, I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning and couldn't sleep, and I started writing a speech to the school board. And when my wife came down around 7:30 in the morning, I'm sitting there in tears as I'm writing this. And she's like, what is wrong with you? Why were you up so early? I'm like, I can't sleep over this. Something's got to be done. And it's amazing what motivates you in life. But this was one thing that I could not get out. It was about 3 days before I was talking to a friend of mine, and the same thing was going on with them. And he's like, I don't know what to do either. Well, I read my statement on Zoom that night, and all of a sudden in my Facebook inbox, I started getting all these messages. Thank you for speaking for me. Thank you for speaking for me. You know, we feel the same way. And then I realized, I started asking people, why wouldn't you speak up yourself? Like, why did it have to be me? And then I started to realize how much power the school district has over a community. How many people have jobs at the school district? They don't want to lose their job. They don't want to lose their coaching job. They don't want to get fired from this or fired from that. And everybody has all these fears. Well, I will tell you what, if you want to live in fear your whole life, go ahead. And they will abuse your children until the day you die. So I said, enough is enough. I sent in a request to use the football field for an event. And we didn't have a nonprofit at the time. I just sent it in as a citizen. And I asked Eric Winter, he was an attorney that was really fighting this masking thing in the beginning, and I invited on Facebook, I didn't know how it was gonna go. I invited on Facebook people to come out and listen to Eric Winter speak on the turf. And it was mid-October. Well, wouldn't you know it, from all over, 28 different school districts from all over the area showed up, and we had 450 people in the stadium. And to this day, I still send monthly emails to those people that showed up at the stadium that signed in that day. Some of you might have been there and maybe even get my emails. Well, then I met some patriots like George Uhas from the Tunkhannock area. I met Benny Herring from Pittston area. I met Amy Carrazza from Wyoming Valley West. I met Candace. I met Deb through the election thing, that whole mess. But I started meeting all these people that had these same ideas. I met Nicole Romeo from Dallas Area School District, and Mike Potsko from Hanover area. And we started talking, and we're like, guys, this isn't gonna end. So then it was about between Christmas and New Year's. You know, we were on break, and I had a lot of time to really dive in and see what's going on in schools. And I started Googling, like, why? I know our superintendent. He is a great guy. Why is he doing this to our kids? I know he doesn't buy all this garbage that's going on. And I found, through many Google search, I found a 78-page ESSER grant. Mm-hmm. And now you all know about it. I hear a lot of mm-hms. And that's what our kids were sold out for. Lake Lehman was sold out for $3.1 million. I think Abington Heights got $5.5 million, something like that. And things started to progress. I went to my next school board meeting, and I made copies. I made 20 copies of the 78-page ESSER grant, and I delivered them to my school board and anybody else in the audience that wanted them. And I said, this is why you're holding our kids hostage. I found the proof. I asked the school board members, have you seen this document? They all shook their head no. It was amazing to me the restrictions that those ESSER grants were being put on our children. And so then it wasn't long after that we decided in I guess it was like February, we decided, you know what, we gotta start this nonprofit. So we filed our paperwork in April. We just finished our first fundraiser and raised $40,000. We did a gun raffle, and I think there's still 3 tickets in the room if anybody's interested, just so you know. But we raised $40,000 with our first fundraiser, and honest to God, there was a skeleton crew of us. There was like maybe 15 of us, and we're like, how are we gonna sell 5,000 tickets? So, well, let's just get it out there. And we got it out there, and people started buying them, and people really liked what we were doing. So, I tend to bounce around. I see a squirrel, one of those guys. But the whole thing started to happen, and we were like, we sat down and we made our strategic plan. And what we really realized is that our government is broken from the ground up. I want you to think if you bought a dilapidated house on 100 acres and you were gonna build your home, or you were gonna fix it up and make that your homestead for your family. That is what we have right now. We look at the school board as the basement. If you're gonna fix a dilapidated house, you better start with the basement first instead of the roof. And if we don't fix the school board level and flush the rats out of the basement, they're gonna live there forever. Then, once we get done with that, which is gonna take us 2 years, we have a plan, we have this whole plan. That's gonna take us 2 years to flush the rats out of the basement. Then we're going to the supervisor level at the municipality level. Anybody that's doing things with our money that aren't above board are gonna be known, and they're gonna be known very well in the public, and we're gonna flush them out there. But you see, the beautiful thing that happens is we have a county that's broken. Luzerne County is a mess. But what's beautiful about the way that we're doing it is we're gonna fix the school board, and as we flush these rats out, eventually it flushes them out of the county, because that's what they do. They go from school board to county council to this job to that job to that job, and people do not, they may be good people when they go in there, but they get corrupt.
Absolutely.
So, I wanted to kind of tell you a couple of things that's going on at Abington Heights. We sent a FOIA request in because we wanted to see what their PSBA contract was with Abington Heights School District, because they're doing a lot of crazy things at Abington Heights. If you have any children and friends that have children, you have grandchildren there, you need to wake up now, because your school is the most progressive school besides Wyoming Valley West and Luzerne County. Tara Houlihan, which I don't know if many of you know Tara from Abington Heights. That woman is a warrior. She is fighting at these school boards. You need to get support to her. You need to show up. You need to bring a friend. Because today, they denied her FOIA request about the contract with the PSBA. The way we're fighting these school districts is we go ask them questions at the school board meetings. We know when they're lying to us. I mean, you ask them a question, they all look at each other, nobody gives you any answers. What's that?
They say 20 different phony answers.
You got it, or no answers at all. It's one or the other. And they kind of look at each other, okay, you're done, move on to the next person. They don't respect anybody in here. So, we fight them with FOIA requests or right to knows, which anybody in here can do for free. So we submitted a FOIA request to Abington Heights School District about a week ago. They denied the FOIA request and said these records don't exist, or some excuse they gave us. And Benny Herron, who's our Vice President of Citizens Advisory, filed an appeal to the Office of Open Records. Who in here has ever filed a right to know request? Can you raise your hand? Very good. So one of the things our group does is teaches people how to write proper FOIA requests so they don't get denied. Well, Benny got it back and he's like, this is a legit question she's asking. So how many of you filed FOIA requests? Raise your hand one more time for me. Now, keep them up. How many of you have filed an appeal to the Office of Open Records if they denied you? One? You haven't been denied yet? 1, 2 people. So when you file a right to know and the school board denies you, I'm not the school board, the administration denies your request, for free you can file a request to the Office of Open Records down in Harrisburg. It's free. They receive it, they assign a lawyer to it. Benny did that about 3 days ago, and sure enough, we got 4,100 emails today from Abington Heights School District. Benny is the head of our lawn strategy team. George Uhas is head of our transparency committee. And those two are like, you ever like open the snack cabinet and your dog's looking at you and his ears go up? If you ever say in front of Benny and George something happened at your school, that's how they act. What'd you say? and they are all over it. They know the rights of the people. They know how to get information. And the reason I need everybody in here to start showing up for Tara Houlihan is because, and again, I'm not discounting anybody else here. I just know Tara so well because she's been down to our meetings. I've been on the phone with her at 11, 12 o'clock at night where she's breaking down in tears because she's one person and can't do it. She's got so much pressure and she knows what's going on. Your school district up here is so corrupt. It is so progressive. They are tiering your children. See, I almost lost my train of thought again, because this is what I started with, now I'm back to it. They are tiering your children right now, as we speak. Either tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 of mental health need. There is no tier 0. In the state of Pennsylvania, if your child is diagnosed with mental health disorder, level tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3, at 14 years old, the school district no longer has to communicate with the parent. They can communicate directly with your child. You don't even have to know about it. They are also trying to piggyback that bill right now. I think it's Pennsylvania State Bill 54 or 854. You can look it up. They're trying to piggyback off of that and add vaccines to it at 14 that your child can decide whether they want a vaccine or not. That is currently in the legislature right now. And I'm telling you, if you don't wake up, it's going to be too late. And you're all going to be saying what happened. So, I only have 15 minutes, and I already feel like I've been up here that long, and I don't want to overstep anybody else. Am I okay still, or?
You are okay, sir.
Okay, you just give me the hook when I need it. What other school districts do we have represented up here? Lackawanna Trail.
Dunmore.
Dunmore.
Tunkhannock.
Tunkhannock. Blue Ridge. Hazelton area. Oh boy, you guys are. Mountain View. Benton. Yeah, I'm in Sweet Valley. So I'm right by you. Dallas. Wilkes-Barre. Okay, Wilkes-Barre is the only school district we don't have represented in our group in Luzerne County, so they're running away with the train right now. But I'm telling you, every school district that was mentioned here tonight accepted ESSER grant money in July of 2021. Every single one of them. There was one, I was waiting for Wyalusing to come up. I talked to their school board president, I'm like, why didn't you accept the grant? He goes, I'm not signing these kids up for that. Yeah. It was awesome because he was actually a school board member that got the information and read it. I mean, it's one thing to give it to him, but he actually took the time to read it and found out what was in the document. So, two things. The ESSER grant was kind of the first thing, and then they came out with a program called the SAP for mental health, multi-tiered supports for mental health. That's where the tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 came in. As I know right now that I can confirm, standing up in front of you right now, the only school that I know of right now tiering those kids in 1, 2, and 3, 100% is Abington Heights.
I just had a parent-teacher meeting 2 days ago. They brought the counselor, the teacher in the school, in the room and said, your child may have a mental disability.
There you go.
It's my daughter, right there in front of my ex-husband and I. I can't believe this. Wow. They just did this 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Park Summit Elementary School.
Yep,
3rd grade.
you got it. That's where they want to start it. So, do you know Tara Houlihan?
I do. Yeah, I talk all the time.
Okay. Tara is a patriot. She is a fighter. She will research things. She is an amazing person. But she needs help. She needs people with her fighting. She's got 4,100 emails she got today. Knowing her, it'll be done by tomorrow at breakfast. I know how she is. She needs help. She needs people sharing these emails to spread the word with her. Yes, in the back.
And anyone at the school districts are putting out surveys to these children. And if your child is saying that they're hungry at school, or they're in a bad mood, or they have any kind of problems, they're signing them up with that tier 1. So you as a parent have a right to say, I don't want my child to take any surveys, whether it's online, on paper.
And we have an opt-out form on our website and on our Facebook page. You can download.
I have lunch right now.
You have them with you?
If anybody needs one, I ask that you copy it and spread it.
Your kids will be labeled for the rest of their lives. At Hazelton area, in order for kids to get into their Chromebooks, they log in, they have to do what's called a rhythm app. It asks them 3 or 4 questions. They answer it. 3rd grade. They answer these 3 questions. Are you hungry? How's your social life? What is a 3rd grader? Tell me how many. I have a 3rd grader. If I ask her what her social life was like, she's like, what is that? And then at the end, okay, this is every day. This is penetrating your children every morning at Hazelton area. Every morning they log in, they get asked 3 or 4 mental health questions. And then every morning, they can't even get into their Chromebooks unless they answer these 4 questions. And Colleen's not here from our group, but come to our next Citizens Advisory meeting. Colleen will be there. Her daughter's going through right now. She just opted her out 2 days ago because she found our group. So after they're done answering these 4 questions, a video pops up. Her daughter answered all 4 questions beautifully. I feel great. My social life's great. Her daughter's in 3rd grade too. Her mom asked her, what's your social life? She's like, I don't know. She's like, what are you answering the question for? But, after they're done, she answered the questions perfectly. A video pops up. You know, it's okay to be sad. And if you're sad today, you can go talk to a teacher. You can go talk to a counselor. Wow. They're brainwashing these kids right in front of our faces, and people better wake up. And if you are here from a school board, if you're here from any other school district, you need to get involved with Citizens Advisory if you want to fight school board level issues. Yes?
So that, you're saying Rhythm app is on the Chromebook, and I'm assuming that was when they did this one-on-one, because that's a lot of it, it's called the one-on-one.
Peer-to-peer.
Well, because they wanted everybody to have, computer applications, Chromebooks, that's what they call it one-on-one. Your school district becomes a one-on-one, which means it's putting the Chromebook in every child's hand. We might be talking about 2 different things. So what I'm wondering, because I know with some of these books, these Chromebooks, the school districts had options of buying higher level, lower level. So with this Rhythm app, is it coming on every Chromebook?
No. The only 2 districts I know that are using it is Crestwood and Hazelton as of right now.
The Rhythm app is being used at Lackawanna County VOTEC.
Lackawanna County VOTEC.
But they actually sent a form home to the parents that you may opt out.
Yes.
They are using it at that school.
And see, that I'm glad you brought that up, because if you notice, all of a sudden, all your kids have to opt out of things, not opt in. They're trying to brainwash that kind of thinking too. That you're just in. If you want to opt out, you can opt out, but you're in. That is wrong. Up at Crestwood last week, 2 weeks ago, J-Line Productions came in from New York City to do an anti-bullying event. The school district paid them to come in. They came and did a 30-minute dance and all this stuff. And the guy that was the kind of the leader, I don't know his name, but he was telling them his name and his Instagram name and this and that and the other thing. Well, the kids start looking him up on Instagram, and he's dressed in, he was naked in several of the photos, but, naked.
Oh.
Naked. in his Instagram photos. So we're filing a FOIA request at Crestwood, and we're asking, because I can't work the damn concession stand if I don't have my clearances. I want to know where the clearances are for these dancers they brought in.
Yeah.
And if you don't start fighting with right to knows, they're so powerful. They will try to hide from you. You just appeal to the OOR, and as long as you're asking for a record, that's the key. You have to ask for a record. You can also ask for emails, because emails are records. At Tunkhannock, they told Tunkhannock, this was back way in the beginning, when I first met George Uhouse. He comes in with a binder this thick. He was going to the school board asking if they were talking about bringing critical race theory into Tunkhannock. No, Mr. Uhouse, it's not even on the radar. He FOIA requested all emails pertaining to critical race theory from all of the administration. How many again? 6,000 or something like that emails.
Nice.
Back and forth from person to person about what they're doing, how they're planning critical race theory, how they're going to implement it, but it wasn't on your radar. They will lie to you tooth and nail, and if you don't wake up and start asking questions, we would love to get a strong school board group going up here, but God, please, if you are at Abington Heights, reach out to Tara Houlihan. She needs help desperately. Any other questions before I wrap up? Yes?
What's your website or Facebook page so people can get in touch with you?
Oh boy. I can't ever remember this stuff. I have it right here. Hold on. Oh, right here. Okay. You can find us on Facebook, Citizens Advisory of PA. Citizens Advisory of Pennsylvania on Facebook. Our website address is citizensadvisorypa.com. And we're on Telegram, LinkedIn, and Twitter as well. So our email is citizensadvisoryofpa@protonmail.com. And I do have cards here, and they have a QR code that takes you right to our website on the back. We would love for anybody to join us with what we're doing. We're really focused on the school board right now. The first floor is the municipalities, which we'll get there in about 2.5, 3 years. And finally, in 5 years, Luzerne County isn't going to be known as the most corrupt county in Pennsylvania. Thank you very much.
Folks, we're going to have more time for question and answer, continue this dialogue on all the topics at the end. That way, if there are folks that have to get out of here and other folks that want to stick around, we can move ahead. Look, I'm going to speak maybe a little more broadly, as is my wont, bluntly, probably. And for my good buddy Vinny, who I think was born in a foxhole as an infantry officer, I'm going to start with a little bit of a military footnote. In the spring of 1864, the Army of the Potomac, which was the Union Army in the East, marched south toward Richmond from its camps near Washington, D.C. And this is the third year of the American Civil War. This is the first campaign of the Army of the Potomac since Ulysses S. Grant came east, took over all the Union armies actually, but personally was with the Army of the Potomac. And they encountered the Army of Northern Virginia under the command of Robert E. Lee. First battle in an area known as the Wilderness. The Wilderness, if any of you know Virginia, is an area near Fredericksburg. It was known as the Wilderness because instead of being farmland, as most of the country was at that point, this is thickets and swamps and forests, and about the last place on earth you would want to fight a battle. So there is a horrific battle known to history as the Battle of the Wilderness, and it is an ugly, bruising affair, right? This is definitely not grand sweeping vistas. You can see the Army You know, the enemy is retreating, it's clear what happened. At the end of this, there's a lot of guys dead and a lot of guys wounded, and I don't know what just happened, right? The next day, or maybe the day after, the Army of the Potomac gets orders to march. And they're marching down a road more or less parallel to the battlefront. And they come to an intersection. And the road splits. And if you turn one way, you turn toward Richmond, around Lee's flank. In other words, if you turn one way, you're not accepting defeat. The war is going on, and we're going to win this thing. And if you turn the other way, you're going back to Washington, D.C., and you're going to go lick your wounds. This is an army that's been losing to Robert E. Lee for 3 years straight. That's probably what they anticipated. And they get to this crossroads, and there's a guy sitting on a horse. And he's wearing the uniform of a private in the United States Army. This is the days when generals could design their own uniforms. So as you would expect, most of them had braid everywhere and ribbons and medals for battles they never won and wars that were never fought, every imaginable thing. This guy is wearing a private's uniform, but when you get real close, you can see he's also wearing 4 stars. He is, in fact, the only 4-star general in the U.S. Army, and I believe the first one the U.S. Army ever appointed. And this is Ulysses S. Grant himself. And he's sitting on this horse. He got a cigar in his mouth. I think he was born with a cigar in his mouth. He doesn't say a single word. He points down the road toward Richmond. And that 1st regiment goes insane. Nobody tells them to cheer, 3 hurrahs, they go crazy, like, oh my God, are you kidding me? We're gonna win this thing. We're not gonna just crawl back in a hole. And all down that line, tens of thousands of guys, right? The word is spreading. What are these guys yelling about? And the word spread, and the next thing you know, the whole Army of the Potomac is cheering. They can hear this in the rebel camp, by the way, and they know right away what the heck that means. Like, good Lord, the rules have changed, right? Never retreated, never quit. A year later, the war was over, right? So what's my point? My point's pretty obvious. Every single one of the people in this room and in this whole movement is standing at that crossroads psychologically right now. Right? Every single one of you is going to have to make your own decision. I've talked to dozens and dozens of people. You know, as president of the coalition every day, there's a lot of dispirited people, there's a lot of dejected people, there's a lot of depressed people. You know, as Peyton Manning would say, you gotta rub some dirt on it, man. Get back up the field. You just gotta get up. Defeatism is not gonna get us anywhere. The objective facts, what are the objective facts? The Democratic Party has built, while we were sound asleep or eating Cheetos and watching the game, a massive machine to guarantee they win elections. From grabbing a hold of your brain with Google and media and everything at the age of 16, indoctrinating you, blocking the truth, feeding you government benefits, and now the crown jewel, you don't even have to go vote anymore because they'll get your ballot to the voting box. Right? In fact, come on, they don't want you to bother to go to the voting, to the polls. That is old school, it's prehistoric, it leaves too much to chance. They, you know, between drop boxes and mail-in voting, they will guarantee pretty close to 100% of the people they have indoctrinated will vote, and vote exactly the way they want. And up until this point, I haven't said anything about illegality. Doesn't mean illegality is not part of it, because if you won't fill out the ballot, they'll just buy the ballot from you via a whole string of nonprofits. You've watched 2000 Mules. If you're familiar with what's going on in Florida, where there's a big criminal investigation of a scheme in certain communities, folks, just know, I get my ballot in the mail, that's beer money. I just go sell it for $50, and either I fill it out the way they told me to, or in some cases I just give them the ballot and they fill it out. All goes into a Dropbox, somebody forges a signature, who cares? The whole idea of signature verification is ludicrous anyway, come on, Nobody can actually do that. It's voodoo, it's not science. They have this pass system. Here's the real kicker, and both of the previous speakers have talked about this. Nobody is fighting them on any of this stuff. It's not like there's a knockdown, drag-out fight in Harrisburg, and the brass knuckles came out and we lost the fight. We got mail-in voting in Pennsylvania because a Republican majority enacted that bill and ordered every member of the legislature to vote for it. And out of the entire legislature, only 2 people had the moral courage to not vote for Act 77. So not that the Republicans lost the fight, they gave us that Democratic priority. So, yes, I said we gotta get pumped up and psyched and cheer, and now I just depressed you more.
I think you need to say that a second time, because that...
Say which part, about being depressed more?
That part about how they voted that in the state.
I want to
That
say
mail
something
ballot.
on that though, because in Pennsylvania, just because they have an R after their name does not mean they're Republican.
I would
Because in
agree.
the primary, you can vote, you can have Democrat voting on both primaries. So a lot of times it's one in the primary. You have a Democrat running on Republican and a Democrat running on the Democrat side. So
Okay.
that's the point.
You want me to repeat the point about?
The Republicans voted...
Yeah, well, Act 77 was passed in 2019. A Republican-controlled Senate, Republican-controlled House was introduced into the legislature. Every Republican in the House and the Senate except 2 representatives voted for the bill. Because the way the legislature works is leadership tells you how to vote, that's how you vote. Okay, that's the reality. Before COVID, and it was done as part of a deal. I don't want to get lost in this point, but the short version is this. The Republican establishment leadership had determined that Donald Trump was a drag in their downturn. They concluded that he was unpopular, and people would go into a state which at that point still had straight ticket voting, could vote all R's or all Dems, and they would vote Democratic on every office as a way of protesting Trump. Right there, I think, there's no poll in existence that substantiates that the base of the Republican Party in Pennsylvania, in fact, had turned against Donald Trump in 2019. But in fact, that shows you how out of touch with the base of the establishment is. So in exchange for the support of the Democrats, in exchange for the support of the Democrats in getting rid of straight ticket voting and forcing everyone to go office by office, they gave to the Democratic Party mail-in voting. This is not hype, this is not conjecture. Evan, Stacy, and I, many other folks have sat down with leadership and heard this. Senator Gordon told us this entire story directly only a few months ago. He's the second-ranking Republican in the Senate, and as I recall, not only said he did it, but he thought it was a good move and he'd do it again, basically. All right, so the point here in terms of strategy, approach, everything is, we know what we're facing in terms of a machine that is against us. We do not have anybody fighting for us. I'm speaking broadly, obviously. Do I really mean there's nobody holding office in the Republican Party who wants this to be different? Obviously not. At all the county levels and so forth, there are good people. But as an entity, as a party statewide, this party is not representing the interests of the Patriot movement. We have passed through the period of time where we have indulged individually and as groups the fantasy that all that was necessary was to ask them nicely to change their policies. And obviously I'm being a little facetious, but you know, we have emailed them, met, rallied, done everything short of sending carrier pigeons. And the short version is we have been told 50,000 times, drop dead. I mean, in political terms, because it always is made to sound like a compliment of some kind. But the bottom line is, after the 2020 election, what was done to change the electoral process? Nothing. And we could go back and forth on this, but if you really want the acid test for me, Doug Mastriano introduced a resolution 15 months ago into the state Senate to put a measure on the ballot to amend the Constitution and get rid of mail-in voting. Now, as you remember with the emergency, there's a whole bunch of, when Wolf's emergency, so-called emergency power was gotten rid of, this is a complicated process, has to end up on the ballot twice, it doesn't happen overnight. But what it does is it bypasses the governor. The governor has no role in that process. The legislature passes it, it goes to the citizens. When the process is done, it either wins or fails, but Governor Wolf is irrelevant. The legislature has been, very soon will no longer be, but has been under complete Republican control throughout this entire period. So Wolf is not an excuse. That bill could be passed in the Senate, that resolution, sent to the House, passed in the House, put on the ballot, could have been done probably within a week of being put in the committee. Where is that resolution today? Still in committee, has never been voted on, has never been brought up for a vote. In a majority Republican Senate, that means the chairman of the committee is a Republican, and that means the majority of the people on the committee are Republicans. That means all Republican leadership has to say is make it happen, and the Democratic Party is irrelevant. So that decision to prevent the citizens of Pennsylvania even having that opportunity is a purely Republican Party decision. And literally, it didn't even send it to the people. It has literally never even been sent to the floor. It sits in committee to this day. All right, so that's where we are. So the answer is, we've been talking about it all night. The answer is you need to take over the Republican Party. That's the answer. I'm tired of asking Kim Ward, the majority leader, to let us meet with her in her office. All I need to know is when Kim Ward's being thrown out of her office. That's all I need to know. Right? This is where we are. A lot of things in life are simple. Simple doesn't equal easy, right? Nobody thinks this is easy. That's why we're building this coalition the way we're building it. Brought it together. We got bylaws, we got tax structure, we're setting up bank accounts, we formally elected officers, right? We're establishing websites, Facebook pages. We just put together a 3-page strategic plan. This is a long-term effort. And there'll be a whole lot of components to it involving education, more groups, bigger groups, a lot of outreach. I travel around the groups all the time. I see a whole bunch of white people. I'm kind of partial to white people. I got a bunch of them in my family too. That's not a coalition that's going to take control of politics in the state of Pennsylvania. And there's absolutely no reason on earth why that should be the case, other than people are not talking to them. You cannot tell me that the Hispanic community, which is deeply religious and centered on the family, with all these things that we all talk about, that somehow we are at odds with that. That's ridiculous. That's a matter of not doing sufficient outreach. So the drive here is the coalition gets bigger, stronger, more inclusive in every possible way, and the cutting edge of that is candidates at every level. I mean, state legislature, we're already working on what's the list of people that we're going after, finding those candidates. But in the interim, there's no reason why all of this, like you guys have been talking about, can't be happening right now. You know, at the school board level, the county level, even on elections, counties have a huge amount of control. They decide if there are drop boxes at all. They decide all kinds of things, right? As Doug McClinko always says, there are really 67 different elections in the state of Pennsylvania. So a huge amount can be done and changed. But that's the bottom line. That's the cutting edge. That's the direction. Before I jump to questions, I could just leave it. If you're down and so dispirited and so depressed that you can't pitch in, I understand where you're coming from. I'm just going to ask you to step to one side, because we got a lot of work to do, and we don't have time to wallow in depression, and we don't have time to feel sorry for ourselves. questions for all three speakers now. Sir, I cut you off when you were trying to ask the question before.
I said I went to Buck County a long time ago.
Yes, sir.
I've been in Philadelphia, I spoke to a lot of black people.
Yes.
Election cycle, they said Republicans will not come into the community.
I 100% believe that.
All right?
And I'm going to tell you, I apologize. You know what, if I want a man's vote and I want to go talk to him, then I don't know what the heck I'm thinking.
And I believe I deal with them.
He started his comment by saying, he's talking to a lot of black leaders in Philadelphia, and they say the Republican Party won't come talk to him. Yes, sir.
So I've been there, I met with religious leaders and my Jewish leaders, they all said the same thing. And I've been into some of their basements. And the one, Democratic senator said to me, "You're the first white guy I've ever been in here." I said, "Yeah, that's what I love." But I grew up in this city, and it was like, they're going to accept it. And they said they believe the same thing we do. They don't believe in same-sex marriage, they don't want abortion.
100%.
They don't this trans stuff, they're tired of it. They don't want their kids in that school, they're tired of crime.
Look, for those.
I'm going to go in there if I get contaminated.
All right, well, please talk, let's make sure we're focused on it, because, look, when we did the Bloomsburg rally, the clients were instrumental in, one of the key speakers was Zach Shearer, who runs the Butler County Patriots. Did a sensational job. I put him on the bill very deliberately because Zach Shearer is 19 years old. He runs one heck of a good outfit with hundreds and hundreds of people in it, and sometimes I think he's the old man in his outfit. But my whole point of putting him on the stage was to say to all the graybeards, not me obviously, because I'm enlightened, but all the others, maybe this thing about how young people don't want to get involved has a lot more to do with the way you're talking to the young people than it does with their level of motivation. Because every time I turn around and look at a Democratic Party demonstration, it seems to be filled with young people with all kinds of enthusiasm.
Now, one of the things I found out is the Amish people are very interested in the COS and all this stuff. We've got to find a way to get to the Amish people.
We need to connect with everybody in it. That's what we need. Sir?
Hi, my name is Ian Kennedy. I live in Eastern County. I work with Debbie Jordan and Jamie Walsh. Sam brought up a point about younger people not getting involved. One of the things that I can see is that it's a lack of education, it's a lack of understanding of what is actually going on. And it's also a lack of being able, having something that you, having an avenue or having a way to actually get involved.
I can't walk past that again.
And one way that you can do that is getting involved in doing something, and wherever you can fit in and however you can help. The more people get together, the more people get involved, people will eventually come. And especially if you're talking about things that are important to the community, there are people that are like me that feel the way that I do. But for them, I'm 25, but I've gotten to the point where I do see mortality, and I see that you don't live forever. But so until people realize that, there's life experience, yeah. But it really is just waiting, getting to a point where you realize how bad things really are, and that nothing's guaranteed. When you understand that none of this stuff is guaranteed, like the ability to eat, go to the supermarket and buy food, and be able to have shelter, and be able to, all these luxuries we have, none of this is guaranteed. Even voting for our rights, freedom of speech, that's not guaranteed. We're seeing that, in New York, we're trying to get rid of it. It's like, so when you get to that point where you realize that, and especially when younger people get to the point where they realize that, they say, what future am I going to have? You know what I mean? Because obviously people my age are now at the point, maybe like 50 years ago, a lot of my friends started going to work full time, and now at the point they're really invested and they have these careers. But when they get to the point they realize that their money is not being worth anything anymore, and that they have to work more to pay for more, or pay for less, that will hit them. So, I mean, the fact that everybody's here, and the fact that more people are starting to get involved in forming these groups, things are going to get better worse before they get better, and people will see that. And if there's things going on, if there's avenues for people to get involved, people, when they're ready, will get involved, and you're gonna see in the next few years that more and more people are gonna come to these groups, and more people are gonna get involved, so it's not, don't get down and say, you know what I mean, like, oh, man, you know, and like Sam is saying, you know, we can't get down on ourselves, we can't get emotional about it. You have to say, things are gonna get better, but we have to do the things that are lay the groundwork, so people, when people are ready, that we have a machine, we have momentum, and we're ready to do things, we're ready to get things done.
And we should really go out and fight some By the way, I forgot earlier, please, we're live streaming this event, recording it, and the folks that do that volunteer to do that, and round of applause for them. But also, please, if you're able, donate some money to help defray the cost. This gear is not cheap. They're running up and down the road, they're burning gas, which thanks to Joe Biden is now, you know, pretty much like burning gold. I don't know. So please, if you can donate. Also, if you guys have questions for either of the other two speakers, please don't hesitate to ask. Sir.
Hello, so my name's Ed. I'm actually a school board member. I have passionately fought the masking, the closures, and all the other nonsense in the state. Yeah, really, very school board. I don't want to hijack this, but at the end of this, if anybody is interested to hear what I have to say, I have discovered some very interesting things, because I would say when every other board member yinged, I yanged. A lot just didn't do much about it, a lot were scared, they just followed the state guidance. Some actually want the stuff. I went the other way and I asked questions about it. And just to give you a little details, as a school board member, I reached out to all the Republicans in the state. And this is why I feel like I'm within friends here. I reached out to all the Republicans in the state. I knew the Democrats were my enemies with this. I reached out to all the Republicans asking for help. Can you back me up with some of this stuff? And no help whatsoever. Interestingly, I found that they all will go into the newspaper and write on their Facebooks how much they hated the mask, they hated the closures. Then why did you not want to help me? So that's where it started for me. Because I'm a pharmacist. I've had many drug addicts come up to me seeking oxycodone. Their dog ate it, they're going on vacation. I know when people are lying to me. I know when a Republican is lying to me. I know they could have helped me, and I know they didn't want to. They tried to pretend like they were helping me, so then that got me asking, why would they be pretending to help me? And then on the flip side, they have the nerve to say every school board member wants the masking, wants this, wants that. That was definitely not true. So I started to investigate, what is the Republican agenda in Pennsylvania? And if everybody's interested when we're done, and I'll leave it with this for now, I don't know if anybody knows this in the room, but we stand in the one state that was a Republican majority legislature, like you talked about with the mail ballot. We are the one out of 31 Republican-led legislatures as of Halloween 2021, so 14 months ago, that had a mandated masking policy in school districts. Say that 3 times. The 1 out of 31 majority Republican legislatures with a mandated masking policy in the schools. So they could try to blame Wolf as much as they want, and guess what? Wolf did it, but the buggers left the door open for him to walk through it. And if anybody is interested, I know the reason why. It's a very hard, it's a hard stomach reason.
Charter schools.
Yeah, that's part of it. But anybody who, again, I'll see this back to you, because I don't want to steal, but anybody who wants to hear about it, I call it the COVID cyber scam, and it's not a $1 million operation, it is a $1 billion operation. It is a backdoor deal between the Harrisburg Republicans and the Democrats. They are defunding our schools for Philly. All the Republicans are finding public schools to be the enemies and allowing it, unfortunately. But it also hitches up with the elections, because there are some good Democrats who could win, but all the bad Democrats win everywhere. There are some good Republicans who could win, but all the bad Republicans win everywhere. How does that happen in the state? The COVID cyber scam is the reason. And it's the reason the kids were masked, it's the reason the schools were closed. Again, listen, we have teachers unions all throughout the country. Why were we the only one of 31 majority of Republican legislatures to have that rule in place? It is critical that everybody know the answer to that, because it's the same reason why nobody, again, listen, everybody in this group wants the same thing, but they have all the money, and I have found how they get all the money. And it's very interesting how they've done it, and I will share it with anybody who's interested afterwards.
All right, I encourage folks to pull you aside.
Thank you.
Just a couple more questions before we wrap up here. Ma'am?
For your two groups, the Pennsylvania Patriot Coalition and UnitePA, do they have specific issues, like if you wanted to get involved with your group, or do you have satellite chapters around the state?
Right, so UnitePA is a local group. There is one group. There are no chapters. We're mostly Susquehanna County. I think we're all Susquehanna County, right? And then the coalition is, if you will, an overarching umbrella uniting all of the groups. My group, Deb's group, lots of groups, Webb's group, right, all around the state. What has been the primary focus of the coalition to date? Election integrity and fixing the electoral system. For UnitePA, we started like a lot of groups, a bunch of angry people that got together in a living room with my yapping dog, which made us angrier, and we got sucked into the school board, everything that was going on in the schools, because that was the fight and that was where we needed to be engaged. There was no kind of strategic plan, it was just, we got to get to work. We have since broadened our focus to include election integrity, but really this has become all of these things combined to the point of saying the GOP establishment, and again, I'm not damning every individual who's has failed the test, and they have failed us on every one of these issues. And it is because they do not believe what we believe, and they are not attempting. They haven't tried and failed. They're not trying. Half the time they're playing for the other team. So that's where this is coalescing. Deb, do you want to point out something specific you guys are focused on?
Well, I would say, within the coalition, it's made up of all separate groups, of course, and we combine into one large coalition. So within that, I would say the coalition as a whole, I would say, hopefully correctly, that election integrity is our number one goal. And incorporated with that is getting the right candidates into office. As far as the coalition going forward, I'm assuming there's going to be committees eventually down the road, that, because this is in its infancy. So as we keep going now, there will be committees that may focus on things such as, in addition to election integrity, maybe a school board section, maybe a community outreach to Spanish people, so something like that. But I would say election integrity and getting candidates on the ballot is the number one thing. Does the PA coalition, do we get our website up and running?
We do not have the website up and running. It is in beta.
Okay.
We're filling out all the data, the structures, almost complete. It should be live within a week, I hope. You want to talk about your group and your focus?
Yes, up until recently, our focus has been I'll stand up, so up until recently, our focus has been 100% on the school boards. Because we feel it wasn't until the last 3 weeks with the election debacle where we got our group engaged, started going to council meetings. We had 300 people in the rotunda. We had 30 speakers come up and speak against the election. So once this, I look at this as we just hit a speed bump, this election thing. We're not done in Luzerne County because some of our citizens, and as part of our, we filed an appeal today. You have 48 hours to file an appeal in the state of Pennsylvania. We have citizens that filed an appeal today, and they're also being served next Friday. They're being served with over 1,000 notices of trespass on the people of Luzerne County. We are gonna wheel this in because we gotta stay focused on the school boards, and we need to get people on the school boards that are willing to defend our children and not be just an extension of the Pennsylvania Department of Education.
Jamie, can you speak to the intermediate units?
Yes.
Within citizen advisory?
Yes, there's 511 school districts in Pennsylvania, okay? All of those school districts fall underneath 29 intermediate units. So once Luzerne County and Tunkhannock, which is part of Wyoming County, is under intermediate unit 18. So we want to build the structure here in Luzerne County, and our long-term plan is to have a citizens advisory group fighting at the school board level in all 29 intermediate units across the state. And that's, does that answer your question?
And also one more thing, Jamie.
Oh, yes.
If you would be so kind, if you could speak about the teachers and how they're leading now.
In the ESSER grant, it states in the ESSER grant, everybody in here familiar with diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? So you have diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that's also critical race theory. It's the same thing, they're just different words. And inside the ESSER grant, it states right in there that they want to weed out the teachers, the ones that we want, they want to weed them out and put progressive teachers in their place. And how many teachers, if you go to any school board meeting, just look at the resignations every month of teachers leaving. We are fighting for those teachers. We are fighting for the teachers that are willing to stand up for our kids and don't buy into all this garbage. Because in the ESSER grant, nowhere does it say this money's to get the most qualified teacher. That's what it should say. Diversity, equity, and inclusion has nothing to do with the most qualified teacher. No matter what color they are, you should be looking for the best qualified teacher to teach your children.
All right, I think we're last question, then we'll wrap up. You're kind of a ringer, though. You're one of the officers of the coalition. So.
Well, I wanted to speak to the questioner here. If you are trying to connect with local patriots, like-minded patriots in your area, and you're not sure how to do that, I would encourage you to stay connected with the Patriot Coalition, because that is a huge and growing network across the state. And we do have a Facebook page, Pennsylvania Patriots Coalition Facebook page. We have a Telegram group. You need an invitation to get to that group, but you could maybe message somebody from the Facebook group or reach out to Sam or one of the other Patriot people that you know. So stay connected with us. Once the website's up, we will have a complete list of all the groups, where they're located, and their contact information. That's going to be forthcoming shortly.
Thank you. Thank you.
Folks, thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
So guys, I'm gonna wrap this up, but I'm gonna see you soon.